Hello, and welcome back to the Make Room Show. I'm so excited you're here with us today. This is a very, very important episode. So I hope that you have time to listen all the way to the end because we're talking today about the victims of Hurricane Helene. And I have my friend here, Dr. Anna Harrelson. So welcome to the show, Dr. Anna.
Thank you. Hi.
So I'm so glad you came on because I know right now you are knee deep in a lot of work going on. Not only are you a doctor in Hendersonville, North Carolina, you also are the co-owner of We Trade Consignment Sale with your partner, Tracy. And you run a nonprofit that was started by your children. I can't wait to get into that. I think that's really cool. But we met a couple of years ago at a conference in Orlando where we both are meeting up with other consignment sale owners. And my listeners know that I do that as a side hustle. It's a side hustle for you too. And I noticed on one of our Facebook groups where we all kind of conversed that you were starting an initiative to help the victims of Hurricane Helene. And just the more I looked into it, the more I thought America really needs to hear this story. I don't think there's enough people out there that are telling the stories of the victims from this hurricane. And then there's also all the drama on social media. So we're going to filter through that and really hear it from somebody that has boots on the ground, somebody that is living this day in and day out, that has had friends and family and coworkers and consigners and all sorts of people in your personal life that have been affected. I was tracking Helene very closely because many people that are listening or watching this know that we go back and forth between the Gulf Coast of Florida and New York, and my daughter's there. And so that hurricane greatly affected the Gulf Coast of Florida. I'm actually having somebody from that area come on next week, which I'm excited about. But never, ever, ever in a million years, Anna, did I ever think that it would affect Asheville to a basically even worse. I think it was even worse than the Gulf Coast of Florida because of the lives that were lost. And we used to live not far from there. We used to live in Gaston County. And so I've been talking to a lot of friends and family about what's going on down in North Carolina, and I just want to hear it directly from you. I think it's important. And I think that it's also, I wanted to have you on this because it's a great story of Americans helping other Americans. That part is the silver lining of just watching how you've all come together for each other. It's so beautiful. And it just, some of them even make me laugh. So even like, I remember seeing like a reel of these guys on ATVs and it's like the rednecks are here, and it's like, they're all helping with their ATVs. I thought this is amazing. So I'm going to let you take it away. I just want you to share, Anna, like take us back to that day as much as you can and tell us what it was like to experience this travesty, really.
It's wow. I just started crying, like thinking, just listening to you, because living through a natural disaster is it's kind of mind numbing. You don't even, our emotions are everywhere. So just even listening quietly to your story, just you setting this up took me into an emotional place. Um, I grew up at the beach, so hurricanes were just part of childhood. We would tape the windows and pack the stuff and head to somewhere safe. Over and over again, we lived through Hurricane Hugo, which was a huge one in Charlotte and Myrtle Beach many years ago. I used to help as a youth when after Andrew, and I've seen all of that. But living in the mountains, we felt sheltered, right? Like that's just that's not what we were going to have. I mean, like earthquakes and hurricanes were safe. And we
Mm-hmm.
had a little utopia up there. Western North Carolina is gorgeous. We had all these small towns. It's built on rivers and streams and creeks. And I live in a neighborhood called Haw Creek, and I live right on the creek. Um, and we've had some high waters and lots of rain, but never did we expect this. And so essentially what happened is we were all watching the hurricane for Florida, right? And then we knew that it might come our way, but typically when they come in inland, they settle, right? But prior to the hurricane, we had 2 days of solid rain, a completely different storm front. And it was insane. The rain was insane. And when the hurricane came in, it just did us in. The water was too high. the rivers were already about to crest, and the trees and all of it couldn't take it anymore. When we woke up that Friday morning, I guess it was around 6, my daughter woke us up and she was like freaking out. Like she's like freaking out. She's like, people are dying, because we still had cell service and she was starting to see some things. And we were exhausted because I'd woken up earlier in the night to take my dogs out and check the flooding and all of that. Of course, I took them out on on leashes, and I was like tied to the house. We actually ended up tying my husband to the house to try to get to our chainsaw, because so he wouldn't get taken up in our driveway. It was a river, it was floodwaters. And so we went back to sleep from 6 to 8, and we woke up at 8. The world was a different place. The internet was off, all cell phones were off, all power, like water we had for a few more hours, and then it just kind of dried out. And this was whatever Friday morning, maybe the 27th, I don't know, it's all a blur. And we all just went outside, right? The floodwaters had receded a bit and were starting to recede a bit. There was a tree everywhere you looked. You couldn't go anywhere. You couldn't go left or right in any direction. It just was like just everywhere. Eventually I took a hike with my friend. I live near the Blue Ridge Parkway. And even on our, like, so there, it was trees down everywhere there. There's no driving, but there were mudslides near my house. We just couldn't even believe what we were seeing. But this whole time we were cut off from the outside world. So we didn't even know what had happened just a mile or two down where I live is Swananoa. And if you've been paying attention in the news, like that's kind of ground zero. My babysitter lives there. She was a single mom now raising her children. They were evacuated by the National Guard into a shelter. Their neighbors, they were the ones where you can see that the houses were just roofs, and they had to be evacuated by boat, and they lost everything. And that same neighborhood, I'm pretty sure, is where we lost Micah, who was the little boy and his grandparents, who the mom watched them float off the roof, and he went to our elementary school.
Tell the
And that's
listeners a
just,
little bit about.
Micah was a little boy who loved soccer. He loves superheroes, and he and his family were super tight. The grandpa always used to go to soccer. When I ran into the head of the soccer league where the soccer club where our kids used to play, they were heartbroken. One of my good friends was his second grade English, like reading specialist, second grade assistant. He was an amazing kid, and his mom and him, his second grader, and her mother and father were sitting on their roof just praying. I mean, and they thought they were safe, right? They took a picture because they thought they were safe. And then before she knew it, all 3 of them just were lost into the floodwaters. And the floodwaters, you think, oh, well, can you not swim? No, it was like being put in a blender with pieces of houses and rocks and trees and you've seen the videos online. It's insane how strong those floodwaters are. And the people, I mean, people that did make it would hang on to trees until they could be rescued. And you've seen those heroic rescues, but these were all like, this was all happening a mile from my house, and we had no idea for several days.
Yeah.
Personally, we were able to I guess maybe 48 hours in, we were able to hike up the street to our church about 2.5 miles. And there's a church up the street where a friend of ours was like, there's food in the freezer and it has to be cooked, and it's a commercial kitchen with a propane stove, and we're going to feed people. So we just started feeding people, and we found some markers and made a sign and stood by the road, and we were like, come on, we're going to feed you and we're going to figure it out. And we fed about 150 people the first day, and then it just grew up to over 500, and people were coming, and then it became a distribution hub. And so the kids had something to do, and we just mobilized our nonprofit. We mobilized our neighbors, our friends. Our skill set as event planners came in real handy, right? Being able to just set up and make things happen efficiently. And there were people that would come, and one lady said she would have died if it had not been for these kinds of efforts. And this was happening all over Western North Carolina. So we weren't unique. There was people everywhere. Just once they recognized that they survived and that people had needs, we just popped up, and people were helping people. And you're right, it has been one of the most beautiful things. I hate that it takes a natural disaster to see that, but I've had so many people say, like, there's no place I'd rather be during a natural disaster than Western North Carolina.
Yeah. And
For
having
sure.
lived not far from there, I can tell you that I can picture it. Like I can picture how kind and neighborly the people in that area are.
Yeah,
it's special. Yeah, it's
it
special
is.
having,
It
we've
definitely is.
traveled into that area a lot when we lived there. My husband was a sheriff not far from there, and people are good. People are really good.
Yeah,
So
the term good old boys means something.
the good old boys, right,
Yeah.
right. Oh man. So as the days went on, did you have any idea what you were dealing with? Did your family, your friends have any idea how bad this was because of the
It's
fact that you didn't have internet?
it started to unfold. There were these little pockets where you could get internet. Like I hiked up to the Blue Ridge Parkway and we could get a little service. We started seeing, now again, it was only a few people that had service that could tell you what was happening. Um, I think it took about 6 or 7 days for me to really understand the magnitude of what was happening. And that's when I was able to get off the mountain and come down the mountain to Charlotte area to get a shower because we were,
Mhm.
we had been sort of covered in mud and it was pretty gross. And my parents have a house down. So we came out for about 18 hours and took a shower and watched the news. And that's when I think it became apparent that our entire region was decimated emotionally, physically. I mean, we've lost so many bridges, so many roads. It's not just the loss of life, which is tragic, but it's the loss of infrastructure. It's these cute little mountain towns that no longer exist. I mean, there are sections of interstate, the Interstate 26 that don't exist anymore. So what used to be an hour drive to East Tennessee, I was told the other day it's like 2.5 to 4 hours, depending on how you're rerouted around, because you can't get there because the interstate just doesn't exist. And when you see a picture of it, you're like, oh, okay. Like and that's happening everywhere. And so some of the magnitude of the need for relief and the people who have come with helicopters, and we're talking everybody. The military shows up, FEMA shows up, but so does everyone else. And so the Cajun Navy, Operation Savage Freedom, like anyone who has a helicopter who was interested in helping, they showed up. I mean, and they're still there. It's been a month and we're not that much further out. There are people still in their homes that don't have the capacity to get off their mountain because there's no bridge. Now, some have been rescued off. They have nowhere to go if they're rescued because their home may be okay, but they have no way out. And that's why it's so bad, because this spans for miles and miles and miles and miles in towns and counties. And it just washed out bridge after bridge after bridge after bridge. And what used
Wow.
to be green and beautiful is just silt. There were
And
there
so
were
the water was rushing and it was so powerful. And how long did it take for that to calm down?
It came and went very quickly. 2 hours
That's
was the mass of it. It was a 2 hour situation that will leave 2 decades worth of drama. And I mean, I had this sweet little man at the church, Chuck, who's retired and he runs and he had gone running the day after the storm and he just broke down and we both just cried. He saw 6 people unalive on our golf course where we live. A golf course, our
wow.
municipal golf course, just right in our neighborhood. And
Yeah.
and that's just what he saw. And that's just not humane. Like
Mhm,
it doesn't,
mhm.
your brain can't do it. It can't put
Handle it.
those pieces together. It took us a couple weeks to get down there, but we were able to, like the grocery store where I shop, my Walmart, none of those places exist anymore. They've been washed
Really?
out or they're covered in mold. If the structure is still there, they were underwater. And so I believe
The
Lowe's is
mold
not going to
got passed.
rebuild. We had no
Yeah.
power. So there was no way, if you get water in your basement, what do? You call Serve Pro, you get fans, you bucket it out, you get a sump pump. For weeks we had no power. And it took everyone over a week to get your head around, we need a we need a generator. How can we do that? Like, how do we get started in surviving? And so
Mhm,
everyone lost their food. Everyone was eating, whatever they could deal with. A lot of,
mhm,
we luckily had a propane stove, so I was able to boil water and that was everything, but not everyone does. So there was
right.
bucket brigades pulling water out of the creek and taking it up to the, disabled home people who live on the second floor who have toilets that are filling up. I went to the hospital to check on a friend and the hospital toilets, it was like third world country. It's a major, ter- you know, tertiary care center. it can flush their toilets. So
Wow.
it was pretty intense, and still we're climbing out of it, but we have a long way to go.
That take a long, long, long time. Do they have, how many people have lost their lives at this point? What is the current number?
It's
Do you
a
have any
really great
idea?
question. That's one of those places where the conspiracy theories kind of are heavy. If you pay any attention to social media, there's a lot of people saying that it's being underreported. The reported North Carolina state numbers around 200. I would agree with what the social, I'm not really one for conspiracy theories. I'll tell you, FEMA showed up, like people are helping, but there's no way that it was only 200 people. And part of that is because if they're missing, they're not counted. Because they can't say that they've passed away. There are body parts they're still finding because they were pulled apart into the river. There could be people underneath very, very, like deep mud, that once that stuff settled 6 and 8 feet underneath the mud, people could be down there. And so there's still lots of people that are unaccounted for. And I don't know if the final fatality count will actually ever be accurate.
Yeah, I can't imagine how they could.
Yeah. Then the
But
other thing that happens is that cemeteries, if they get flooded, those bodies come up and the caskets open. And so they can't count someone dead if they don't know when they died. So there's a lot of nuance to that.
thought about that. Wow. What about the kids? Like the schools are closed, right?
The schools are actually opening right
Oh, they
now.
are.
Yeah, a
Okay.
month later. The schools were supposed to be out for the rain on Thursday and Friday of that week. And then school was just out indefinitely. So they had to reroute all the buses. It took the schools 2 weeks to even start making all the calls that says, is your child alive? Buncombe County started having any volunteer hand them a list of people to go check on to do wellness checks. The school did the same. They split the list once they were able to find a way to call. But I mean, not everyone, I'm still on SOS at my house. So a month later, my cell service is still SOS when I'm at home. I was able to borrow a Starlink from my brother in Texas. He mailed it to us, so that helped us out quite a bit. By week 3, I was able to get on the internet at my house some, and we had power within just under 3 weeks. And then water came back, but it's brown and thick, and it's pretty much just for flushing toilets right now. It's
In
going to
your
be a
house.
while. In all of Asheville, the entire city of Asheville, they are slowly restoring water service, but it's only like dark, nasty, turbid, highly chlorinated, but definitely contaminated water. But you can flush your toilets. So
What about showering?
they have showers set up. Let's see, like my bank down the street, it's no longer functional because it's growing mold inside, but they're using the parking lot for showers. There's comfort stations that both the city and private property, private businesses have paid for and have set up. So at my kids' high school is a comfort station. They have laundry trailers and shower trailers. Certain churches are letting places put up shower trailers. There's the gyms are allowing you to use their showers, like the YMCA was allowing free showers. So people have learned that you don't need to shower every day. This is day 5 hair right here.
Not look bad.
and and so you just kind of get by, but you don't want to shower in the contaminated water. And I mean, some people do, but it's
Right.
not pretty. Yeah.
Right. Things that we don't even think about. Like I
Oh,
didn't
yeah.
even think about the laundry. I didn't think about the water coming back on but being contaminated. It's unbelievable the things that you're describing. I just can't even wrap my brain around it and
Yeah,
can't
when
even
an
imagine.
entire town has to shower in a parking lot.
Yes, I
Yeah.
can't. And this is why I wanted to have you on. Okay, so before we get into how we can help, because that's the main part of the show, I do want to ask you, since you are a survivor of a natural disaster, what would you like us to know? Because I'm sure you've learned a lot on how you could be better prepared for something like this. And whether you're listening and you think a hurricane could never touch me, I live in upstate New York. I mean, the weather is crazy lately. The world is uncertain. There's so many other things. I mean, there's places where they've had the fires. I mean, there's earthquakes, there's tornadoes. What, I feel like we can learn a lot from you. Do you have tips for us?
I have to say that I have a rental property. It's actually the house I used to live in, and of course it flooded completely. The basement was just, they were bucketing water out all Friday morning. But the people who live in there, they're from Florida. They lived through all the hurricanes and they went to California and they moved to Asheville because of all the wildfires. So they were just like, we give up.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, it's everywhere.
would say if everyone should own a generator. Period. End of story.
Mhm.
You should own a generator. It doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to power your whole house, but everyone should own a generator because you can plug in your refrigerator, you can plug in your medical devices if you have them. You know, like you can charge your cell phone. That's something I will never be without. So,
Mhm.
a generator. Everyone should have some sort of a solar powered battery charger for their cell phone, and definitely a couple of those power bricks need to they need to live in your property. We have we've now started stocking MREs at our house. So we have some of those. We're
What's
hoarders, just a
MRE?
little the meals ready to eat, like the government meals that you
Okay,
would,
MRE, yeah, okay.
yeah, but
Yep.
some sort of like long lasting food. We happen to be really good at preppers. My husband has a garden that was active, and so we did personally okay and have, you know, we had a pantry full of food and all. Yeah, we were fine. I'd say we did really well, but I'm a grown woman with a house, and people who live in apartments and don't have as many, you know, ways to store stuff, you know, and they
Right.
live more, like you kind of do need, you do need a week's supply. You need a week's supply of food that you can, and a way to cook it. You need a grill if you don't have propane, and you need propane on the ready, because if it goes out, you have to survive. Um,
Mhm.
Definitely, I'd say people should always have a little bit of water. We luckily were smart enough to fill our bathtub with water, and that got us through a lot.
Yeah,
And I also live on a
yeah,
creek. So
yeah,
that was kind of a win because I could wash my dishes in the creek, and I did for a long time,
yeah,
which
yeah,
was great. So just like owning a bucket, right? Like these are these things that you don't even think about, and people didn't have any of those just basic things that you can use to get yourself through. I mean, the election's coming up and we don't know what's going to happen no matter what
yep,
the results are. I'll have to say, like, I feel prepared now if things go down.
yes, yes. My husband was talking about, we were talking about the stuff to be prepared for recently, and it just like things like packets of tuna fish,
Mhm.
saltine crackers, peanut butter. I mean, there's lots of things, even if you don't
Beans.
get the MRE, yeah, you can get
Yeah,
these things.
beans.
A manual
Beans.
can opener. Don't rely on
Yes.
an electric can opener.
Yes. If you're a
Filling your
coffee
empty milk
person,
jugs.
if
Pardon?
you're a coffee
Coffee?
person, you need to have a French press ready to go or a pour over
Yep.
setup. Because that was the first
Yes.
thing day one, my husband was like, wait, I need coffee. Right?
Yeah. Coffee to
So
keep going, right? And
yeah, and if
like
you
the
don't
other
have
thing,
propane, then that you need to be ready with some way to boil.
and even just filling up your gallon, your empty milk jugs and things like that with water.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody, every time you use one of those jugs, just fill it up and store it
Yeah, store
away.
it somewhere. It's not a
You
bad
know?
idea to have and just sort of check in on every once in a while. Like we always used to make fun of my mom for all of her prepper energy,
Yeah.
but it's come in handy for sure.
It's funny because I remember around the turn of like the year 2000, the big topic was prepping. And then we got
Y2K.
away from it. You know, we got away from it. But when you're talking about natural disasters, it's important. So, even flashlights, you know, stuff like that. The rope thing, really, I never, that was very
We
smart. For
our
dogs.
ropes, yeah, our ropes were actually in our shed, which was being filled up with water at the time, and so we used a extension cord to tie my husband off, and so he didn't get taken out.
An extension cord. Wow.
Yeah, well, it's
Okay.
sturdy.
Tell us so you're partnering your sale, your children's consignment to sale for everyone that doesn't understand what's going on here, which is called We Trade. You have decided to not do it for profit. You're doing it as a nonprofit to raise money. 100% of the funds go to the victims of Hurricane Helene. You're partnering with Chances for Children Carolinas. Tell us what this is and how people can help regardless of where they live.
So, okay. So about 5 years ago, my children, through a school project, started Chances for Children Carolinas, and their mission
Love that.
was to provide money for extracurricular activities for kids who don't have the resources for that. So dance, drama, soccer, piano, taekwondo, whatever those things are, but especially before you get into the middle and high school years when there's school options available, those kids who are getting all those experiences in elementary school clearly have a leg up, right? And there's a very big divide in, in the haves versus the have-nots. So my kids made that a service learning project. They started a 501(c) with my help, of course, and they've kept that alive. And the minute this happened, we realized that basic needs were way more important than anything else. And people wanted to know how they could help. So we just transitioned. My daughter had just rebuilt the website because they've taken leadership roles in this, and transitioned it to be 100% Hurricane Helene. We've raised money so far, and then we have a way on their website for people to request assistance. And so we're using our resources because so many of our own neighbors and village have lost everything. And knowing also those aren't people don't even want to ask. No one wants to ask for money. We're all strong, humble helpers. We're stoic. We don't want to need things from anyone else. We're happy to help someone else, but nobody wants to take. But we're able to, in our unique position in the community, know who's hurting. And so we are providing funds for those people, whether they ask or not, or we're getting other people to, fill out an application for them. And we're giving assistance for those who have lost everything. We're giving assistance to those who have lost their job, who have been displaced, who have lost their car, who can't pay their bills because the bills are due. There's no rent freeze. Like people are losing their jobs right and left because the businesses aren't open anymore. The economy in Asheville was amazing, but in the mountain towns, there was a lot of poverty anyway. But people are hardworking, and now there's no way for them to work in a lot of those jobs. So we're trying to just like feed them cash because the cavalry came and brought diapers. The cavalry came and brought food. The cavalry came and brought cleaning supplies. But after about all of those places are starting to dry up, they're becoming, there's a couple of great hubs where people can get stuff still if you need it. But what people need now is the finances to live, the finances to take the next step, the ability to take a breath and be like, okay, where am I going? And so when you've lost everything and you're in that space, we found that anything is everything. So if we give them $200, $500, $1,000, that is so much and such a big hug, right? Like to allow them to breathe. So we're collecting donations. So just from our website for people.
Can
From
you
others.
share the website, Anna?
Yeah, it's chancesforchildrencarolinas.com.
Okay.
And it's right on the yeah, it's right on the homepage. And then again, there's also a place on there for requesting assistance. And then from my business standpoint, our next sale is going to do it's a holiday event because not everyone lost everything and people still are planning to shop. And so our next sale is 100% donations will be in the sale, and everything that is purchased, 100% of the profits go into our fund. And then we'll be allowing for people to help like buy vouchers so that those people who need to shop for free, who have been identified in that space, can shop for free. So we'll have a way for people to buy vouchers for kids to shop and for adults to shop. And then the second part of what we're doing is any of those donations that are extra. We've gotten a trailer donated to us from one of our consignment sale owners in Charlotte. And we just, Tammy Todd, who's like the most amazing idea, generous.
Awesome.
She's amazing. We told her we were looking for a trailer, and she goes, I have one, you can just have it. And that, of course, Tracy and I were like all tears because our logo is the bee. Yes, our logo is a little bee with a recycle in it. And so we're going to call the trailer the Free Bee, like the freebie.
Love it.
And
Cute.
right, that wasn't my idea, but I finally got it. Yes. And that was all Tracy, and it took me a week to hear it. Freebie. Like, so we're gonna take that trailer with racks of clothing and items that are essentials to these remote towns, because the mountains are just, there's little hollers and there's towns that were decimated and they can't get to Asheville. And so we're gonna do pop-up scheduled events where we take that trailer full of winter clothes, teen clothes, whatever that community needs, and put out a tent, roll out the racks and say, come get what you need. Because a lot of what's happened is people have just sent donations of clothes in big bags and boxes. And they've sent a lot of them have sent their trash, their Goodwill box. And that's
Yeah,
not what people need right now. They need
no.
to stay warm. They need to replace their moldy tennis shoes. They need, so we're going to take all of the things that don't sell and any additional donations that are given to us into these areas and give them what they need for free. So
Oh,
that's sort of
that just
our response
gets
right
my heart,
now.
Anna. That gets
Well,
my heart so much because I want to just point this out for a minute. This is taking what you, like the resources you have, the skills you have, right? Already, like your God-given ability, and using it for good and figuring out a solution in the middle of an emergency. And I think that's what is so beautiful about it. And people that are listening, they might have a neighborhood that needs their help. And they're like, well, I'm not, I don't have access to a consignment sale, or I'm not getting a free trailer. There is something that you can do in your own neighborhood for people in need. Especially, we're gonna make sure this airs soon. We're bumping it up because it's so important, but we're going into the holiday season where people feel very charitable and they want to do goodwill towards others. And this is like your example can inspire other women to do that in their own way. And I just want to take that minute to encourage whoever's listening. Think about how you can be of service in your own neighborhood. It doesn't have to look exactly like this, but there are people that are in need. And the second thing I want to point out, and I'm going to harp on it for a minute because it's super, super important. I've been doing some work here in New York for the Family Justice Center, and it's a domestic violence program.
I got to get my
People
charger.
do not donate your junk. Do
Please
not
don't.
donate your things that have holes and stains and aren't the right season, right? Nobody needs
It's
a
absurd.
summer dress in the dead of winter or has been shrunken down so it's not the right size. You really have to hear this. This isn't an opportunity to clear out your house and like get free trash pickup. That's not what this is. Think about if you had lost everything, if you lost your home, think about if your kids have lost everything. What do you want to send your kids to school in? What do you need to show
Yeah.
up to work in? The basics, blankets, warm boots, coats, hats. This is the stuff that people need this time of year. And this is what you should be looking through your home for. I said this yesterday in the meeting at the Family Justice Center, and I'm going to say it again today. I've been in professional organizing for over 22 years. I've ran a consignment sale for almost 20 years. The bottom line is in this country, nobody should go without just based on the amount of things that we all have in
Oh my
their
God.
homes that we're not
It's
even using.
ridiculous. Oh,
We're
it's
not
absurd.
using them. We need to give them. And this is a perfect opportunity. It's a great cause to give. And I really want to encourage you, do the sorting. Do the sorting before you donate. So somebody like Anna isn't wasting her time pulling out garbage. She needs to be in the trailer, heading up the mountain, giving out the stuff. That wastes time and it wastes energy and it wastes resources. So I'm gonna stop on the soapbox, but it's a very, very, very important.
No, I know. We were at the church and people were, thinking they were being generous. And so Tracy and I started going through the clothing before we said no more clothes, in this situation. I was pulling out, no lie. I swear they were from 1950s grandma silk nightgowns with holes in them. There like
Mhm.
4 of them. And then I pulled out
Mhm.
an old kid's tote bag that was stained and sticky. And then a random fake cigarette came out. I thought it was real, but luckily it was fake. Out of a bag of donated clothing. That's garbage, people. And I had
That's
to touch it.
garbage.
And I had to, and it's
Yeah.
okay to throw it. It is, look, I love secondhand. I am a I'm going to use it until it's dead kind of a person. I'm definitely not a use it once, get rid of it kind of person. I'll buy from consignment and I'll use it till there's holes in it. But there's a time and a place for things to be done. And before you
Yes,
do donate it, please just get rid of it. I
yes.
mean,
No,
because
it needs to be
what we're,
done. And
yeah,
don't tell yourself, oh, I did something good today. No, you did not. You actually gave your garbage away. There's a fine line between giving your garbage away and giving things like it actually, I'm going to say this, in a situation like that, it should actually almost hurt you a little bit. Like, oh, I actually not sure if I'm done with this. It's in such great condition. That's what they want. That's what you
yeah.
need to give,
Yeah,
you know?
or just give money and let them buy what they need, as
Exactly.
opposed to, right? So I read something from community leader in Maui, who went through the whole Lahaina
Mhm.
disaster.
Yeah, one of my good friends went through that.
Yeah, and I mean, it was awful. I actually have been there since then, and it's, while devastating and ridiculous, the scale of what I'm dealing with is much larger. But they said in a very clear way, welcome to the disaster within the disaster, which is when people give so much. We had to throw away an entire pallet of fruit cups last week, which we had to find we have to deal with it because they came to us expired. We can't give away
Yeah,
expired food. I mean, that's just we're asking people, we already have contaminated water. I don't want to give people contaminated food.
right.
So it becomes a disaster within a disaster. And through my consignment sale, as the end of each sale, we have leftover items that are donated, right? And so we make it very clear that any item that gets donated through one of our events is targeted. We don't ever just give to the Goodwill. We ask each and every one of our 36 nonprofits that we work with, what do you need? And please
Mhm.
let us fill those needs, because when you give to people things that they don't need, you create a job for them. And the manpower right now is non-existent. But the manpower we have, like, has started to dwindle because we're all going back to work, right? The immediate needs
Mhm.
have been met. That short term, everybody's helping. And so now what's left are the people whose jobs it is, and they are overwhelmed. And there's no way to handle it, to organize it, to get through it. So I appreciate you taking a minute to say that. We do need things, right? But if it's something that we don't need, it's a problem.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, Also, so for the actual sale, I noticed on the Savvy group that some people are talking about shipping boxes of like new items. Let's say
Hmm.
it that way. Is that a
Yeah.
possibility for listeners?
Yeah. So we're doing that through each sale. So for example, if a sale owner wants to get together and have it, they're doing like a donation point for their region, and then collecting it all and either driving it down, or shipping it specifically from the list of items that we're looking for. Again, this particular event is not to replace the items, like, every single thing. This is more of an event where people can dignified go in and shop, whether they're shopping for free or not. This isn't like a free for all, go through the bins kind of donations. It's where everything will be nicely hung and nicely tagged, and they can shop
Mhm.
for their friends and loved ones, a Christmas gift type thing.
Yeah.
Yes, we would be happy to take those donations, because that's exactly how we're going to stock the sale. The people in our community will give some, but they're taxed already. They're taxed from all
Yeah.
directions.
Yeah. And so anyone that's listening that wants to give, again, go to the website and this information is all there, right?
Mhm. The event hasn't been populated yet because I'm working on figuring it out. In the next week, we'll have everything up on both sites, both through our sales site and our Chances for Children site about the event, but we're trying to finalize the details right this second.
Okay.
But the donation
Okay.
link is there.
And feel free to those that are listening, if you're listening to this and you're like, I cannot wait, I have really nice things that I would be happy to ship. It could be toys. I mean, think about the amount of
Toys.
that people are going to want to put under their tree so their kids can have a fun, happy, joyful Christmas morning. If you can't find the information quick enough, feel free to email me directly. My email is organized at jenniferfordberry.com. I will put you in contact with Anna as soon as the link is live. I'll, happy to be a liaison between the two. So, that's amazing. I mean, I'm so proud of you. And I
Thanks.
feel like you should celebrate yourself because you've been working hard. I know we talked before we started recording about survivor guilt and how hard that is for those of you that are still here. And I can imagine, but it's like you're doing everything in your power, right? You're here for a reason, and it's because God knows that you're willing to be the feet on the ground. You're willing to be the organizer. You're willing to be the person that steps up and says, I'll do this. And so I really think that you are amazing. And I just can't say enough about you. I mean, it's just beautiful. It really is. I'm happy to know
I
you, Anna.
Thanks. I get these like welling of tears that happen on a
Yeah.
regular basis now. It didn't used to happen. I'm actually not really a crier, but
Me
it just
either. But
yeah,
I'm
it
teared up
seems
because it's so
it's
touching, really.
yeah, there's just a lot, right? My children are excited to go back to school and see their friends they've seen only the neighborhood kids, which is great. That's been amazing. They've been serving food. They've really like been in that, but their real lives just halted. My daughter had opening night for a Broadway length production that night and it just didn't happen. Like and now it's probably not going to happen until maybe March. Just everything just halted. And then they're going to go back to classrooms that don't have all the same kids. Either the children have left or they've not made it. That's going to be a
Mm,
real it's going to be
that's
I mean,
that's
you
gonna be
just feel
hard.
so protected in America, right? We all feel protected, like we're okay, like everything's
Yeah,
good, we're living our dreams.
yeah.
And then it just one storm overnight,
What
and then everything changes, and it could happen to anyone.
it can happen to anybody. And I mean, it also makes me think about these are the same kids that missed a lot of school during COVID.
For
A lot of them,
COVID.
they already went through a really crazy time that we didn't have to experience when we were that age.
Yeah, that's been for a while. We just kept calling it when the pandemic happened, and then we've changed our term because it seemed like another pandemic to us. Then we started calling it the apocalypse. Nobody really calls it a
Yeah.
hurricane because it didn't feel like a hurricane. It just feels like the world ended. And the reality check is that I was talking to Chrissy on the phone one afternoon. They brought a Verizon truck up to our church and parked it. It became a community hub where people could charge their phones and get cell service and get Wi-Fi. It was amazing. It was the best thing that ever happened to our neighborhood was the Verizon truck. But I was talking to her one day and she said, "Oh, excuse me, I'm in the pickup line." And I was like, "Wait, what?" And that's the moment what we recognize that with COVID, the entire globe shut down, right? We were all in it together. And so and we had communication. So our kids, even though they couldn't hug each other, they could be online together. And so but it was a collective experience of loss. And with this, what's been really hard is that the world went on and the world continues to go on, and we can't really go on. So I mentioned that time I left, to go get a shower about a week in, and none of us wanted to stay. We wanted to come right back because being in the real world didn't feel right. It felt uncomfortable, like leaving that, even though we went to a place where there was running water. It was amazing, but it didn't feel right. We felt like we were cheating on our neighbors. And so we came right
Mhm.
back because the world didn't shut down like with COVID. So these kids have been through a lot, and I'm proud of my children. I'm sad for the ones that don't have the same, the community that mine do. It's going to be rough for sure.
We need a lot of prayers sent your way for
Yes,
your
ma'am.
for your neighbors, the children, and for everybody involved. So that's one
Yeah.
thing everybody can do that's listening. Is definitely
Yeah.
pray. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Well,
Well, thank you.
I really encourage everyone listening to, if you feel called to help this organization, then by all means do it. And if you feel like Anna's story inspired you to do something, you can do it. You can just start doing it. Even if you help a couple of people, I'm sure there's a way in your community to figure out who needs your gifts and your skills and your knowledge and your resources. So thank you for encouraging us, Anna. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for
Thanks for
being an
having me.
inspiration. Ugh, it's unbelievable. So I know you're busy, so thanks for coming on today.
You're welcome. I appreciate you having us, or me. I haven't been alone in so long. I've been with people nonstop. That's another thing that happens is you go from having your own private time and your own routine. I haven't really worked out in a long time, which is starting to bother my mental and physical health. But I'm always, because we had to share power and share light and share washing dishes together, and there's no alone time. So I'm kind of like, wow, where's my people?
Yeah, well, you're here to represent a lot of people, so they're
Yeah.
here with you in spirit. So thank
Yeah.
you so much. And thank you to
Thanks.
everyone listening to the show. Until next week.